We're muted.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. The call to order the meeting of the Manlius Town Board for September 12th, 2023, and it's just after 6:30 p.m. As always, we are virtual or hybrid. If you'd like to join us via Zoom, we've got instructions at the top of each of our agendas. We are currently not streaming, it looks like, to Facebook and YouTube, but we're going to be working on that. That being said, I would ask Councilor Nick to listen to the question.
United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One, we do have Deputy Supervisor Bollinger joining us remotely if you have town on business. So we will start with open podium, an opportunity for folks to come up and share some comments or ask some questions of the board. I do have a couple signups here. If the comment you'd like to share at open podium is relevant to a public hearing that we have later in the agenda, we ask that those comments are saved until that point. But first up, we do have Jim Garris. Okay, you're waiting for the public hearing. Great. With Bill Gray, I believe.
I thought I was going to be here tonight for a public hearing. I found out that it had been canceled last week when I was preparing 3 pages of comments, concerns, and consideration items for you. The voting or the change that's been requested has sent me on a very interesting tour. I've visited your planning office, your clerk's office. I've been to the fire department. Got an hour-and-a-half tour of the wastewater plant. Allison didn't offer me that, but then I didn't ask Allison for it. So the real purpose for appearing tonight is just to tell you that I'm very impressed with the staff that you have and the people you work with that represent you during the week. And thank you for that. I'm learning a lot about the FOIL process. I lived on the other side of it for many years and didn't have to deal with it the way I am now, but your staff is being very responsive, and so thank you for the help, and I'll continue on my tour while I wait for this item to reappear.
And what I will tell you is, if you do have comments that you prepared for that public hearing that's canceled, feel free to send them to the board via email or drop them off with the town clerk so we can see them. There's no reason for, the application was pulled, but the developer is still interested in something there.
Yeah.
So please do share those comments with us, and then you'll see on the upcoming agenda when we're considering.
One of the items that I learned in the process, well, I was here when you voted to be the lead agency on considering that change and indicated that you'd be sending notices to interested agencies. That was in the middle of June, and you got a very fast response from the county. It was dated in the middle of May. I thought that was very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen Benson. Later. Okay, and then Casey Theory.
I meant, they're in public hearing.
Okay. So is there if there's anyone joining us via Zoom who'd like to use open podium to make a comment, please use the raise hand function. That being said, is there anyone that's in the room who has a comment not for a public hearing that's scheduled tonight? Give that just a second. Okay. So moving on. First item on our agenda, public hearing. This was for the zone change application by Terminal Development for the Garden Park Apartments on Hyder Street. That application has been pulled. The developer has expressed some interest in working with the town on a PUD, a planned unit development, to bring that project forward. So as soon as we had some initial conversations, I think public hearing of the draft district plan is the first step in the process for that coming to the board.
Yeah, we have actually applied And then once they make the application, then we can put it on the agenda.
So the client or PA to modify the.
Yeah, they're interested in working with this. Which, for anybody that's not aware, that was something we passed enabling legislation earlier in the year. A PUD is essentially, in a lot of ways, it functions like a zone written for a particular project. It's meant to allow for more flexibility, both on the developer's part, but also from the town's perspective. In negotiating a PUD, there's certain things that the town can request. And in exchange for higher density, maybe there's affordable housing, or there's walkability, or something else that would ideally meet our comprehensive planning goals. So that'll be something that develops over time. And if you're interested in that project, please watch the agendas to see when we have something ready to bring forward. Okay, next up, we have a continuation, right, of the comprehensive plan public hearing. So if you're in the Zoom audience, please use the raise hand function to put yourself in the queue for a public comment on the comprehensive plan. That being said, anyone in the first row who has a comment on the comprehensive plan? Just raise your hand.
Little nervous going first, but my name's Deborah Tooker and I live in the Skyridge Water District, which is also the Horseshoe Lane neighborhood. But I want to talk about the comprehensive plan because my main concern is about the potential quarry going in right next to our neighborhood. Okay, I did send an email today to the board. I looked at the comprehensive plan. In the section on quarry, it does require a set of reports in order to be considered for a zoning change, and I felt those were not comprehensive enough, if you want to use the word comprehensive. So they included hydrogeological, environmental resources, and historical cultural. And as a resident of the neighborhood, what concerns me is that most likely our property values will go down. So I feel like there should be some study of, or there probably are studies out there. To what extent have property values decreased when a quarry was moved near a residential area? And then when that's taken into account, then how would the residents of the area be compensated for that decrease in property value? The other studies that I feel need to be done, maybe air quality and noise pollution would be included in the environmental resources, I'm not sure. But the effects of quarries on housing structures and foundations, I know that that's a real thing. It has happened in other cases. So a report on what has happened with that and how, again, how that would be remediated. In addition to just the monetary value of property, what is the effect on quality of life for the residents who live in that area? So we aren't just monetary beings, right? We're also emotional and spiritual and all kinds of other beings. So if there aren't studies out there, social scientists can do those studies. Okay, what has happened at other quarries when at other neighborhoods when quarries have moved near them? What is the effect on people? And then the final, I think, data that needs to be gathered, and this came up when the lawyer spoke to the board, and I can't remember his name, but he was saying that you could put, all kinds of requirements and restrictions in place, but then once the zoning change goes through, it's very difficult to follow up on those, because who's going to do it? I know Changing Seasons has had a problem following up on their legal agreements, right? So what are we going to do? Keep hiring lawyers to try to fix this situation? So if, a report on what the problems that residents would face once the quarry is in, once the zoning change goes through, that should be included as well. So I think it just needs to be a little more comprehensive or holistic about the other factors that need to be, and the other impacts that need to be taken into account. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, anybody in the second row?
Yeah, I think I can. I'm sorry.
sent you a letter. So I'm gonna read that. Barb Wilson, Horseshoe Lane. With respect, Mr. Kinsella has a vested and monetary interest in this zone change for his quarry, whereas we, as property owners, have a need and I think an obligation to try to maintain the environment around us in the interest of both addressing issues of climate change and sustainability that brought us to this area in the first place. The comprehensive plan on its first page cites the important public goal to build a sustainable future for our community by engaging in environmental stewardship for the protection of our agriculture and natural resources. Repeatedly throughout the comprehensive plan is the express need to preserve our limited green spaces, having allowed over time development to dominate the landscape. The proposed quarry on a beautiful 200+ acre site is an example of short-term monetary benefit for a few at the expense of the greater long-term good and express goals of the comprehensive plan. In addition, this zone change would be a very risky disruption to the problem of our current dysfunctional water supply issues, potentially unfurl those brows.
That's just my static.
Research regarding the serious ill effects of quarries on land and residential areas nearby demonstrate the need to keep this plot agricultural. By doing so, we will avoid losing one of the last large areas of undeveloped land in the town. Additionally, we will avoid visual and physical intrusions, damage to the landscape, increased truck traffic, smoke, noise, dust, all the stuff you know, and potential damage to nearby foundations, and also importantly, the likely deterioration of the aquifer. Please work hard to keep the land agricultural. Thanks for your attention. Faith and Barb.
Thank you. Anyone else? Show of hands.
Yeah.
Mona?
Hi, I'm Craig Dudzak. I'm here for my bi-weekly address. I'm a resident of the Changing Seasons neighborhood, coincidentally. I am not here today to speak for myself, but to present to the board a letter from one of our neighbors who is unable to attend. She addressed it, and perhaps you've already received it, but she asked me to orally present it. Dear Planning Committee, I know it says Planning Committee, but it's the Comprehensive Planning Committee that she intended. My name is Pat Beach. My husband Bill and I have lived in Changing Seasons community for 27 years. We love living in central New York and in particular Fayetteville. Overall, the comprehensive plan has a broad range of goals that, if achieved, would be good for residents, businesses, and the environment. It's apparent that a lot of thought went into this plan. Nicely done. Living near Kinsella quarries, we have become increasingly concerned about air quality, and recent research revealing serious adverse health impacts of very small particulate matter. And you recall with the fires that were going on in Canada, the size of 2.5, I think it's called micron, but became a concern. Allowing newer expanded quarry operations near residential areas exposes residents to increased levels of particulate matter of 2.5 and silica dust, a known carcinogen. Proximity to quarry operations and prevailing winds puts our residents at increased risk of lung cancer, COPD, silicosis, and other adverse health effects. Older residents, children, and those with underlying health conditions are at greatest risk. For this reason, Bill and I request a clean air protection sub-goal to be added to goal number 1, environmental protection and sustainability. To protect all town residents, we request zoning changes that would require a 1-mile buffer zone for residential areas for any new or expanded quarry operations. A 600-foot buffer zone to protect against particulate matter of 2.5 is completely inadequate
because of how far particulate matter of 2.5 can be carried in the wind. Thank you for your consideration, Pat and Bill Beach. And there's a supplemental piece to the letter she sent. It has a number of things digitally that you can access, but I'll read the 3 paragraphs that are the preamble to it. And they're under the label of air quality concerns. Dust generated by pouring can contain silica, a human lung carcinogen. Silica is naturally found in certain types of stone, rock, sand, and clay. Working with these materials can create a very fine dust that can be easily inhaled. Once inside the lungs, the dust particles are attacked by the immune system. This causes silicosis, a disease that can take years to develop. It causes swelling and scarring in the lungs. Silicosis can also lead to other serious lung diseases such as COPD and lung cancer. Companies who operate quarries where silica is likely to be present are required by law to provide their employees with protective equipment. There is no such protection for people who live near quarries. Older people, those with existing respiratory conditions such as asthma, and young children are particularly vulnerable to airborne silica entering their lungs. The risk of harm to health is higher where the prevailing winds carry dust from quarries towards residential areas and schools. I'd also like to bring to the board's attention a handwritten letter that was sent to the board by Mrs. Florence Day. I don't know if you received it yet, but that also, she would have to add it to the record. I think I broke your stuff. Well, but you know, we get it. And finally, I would just say to our neighbors who spoke previously, if you're worried about property values, somehow the assessor doesn't think they're going to go down. He raised our neighborhoods 14.5% this year. So there may be some other concerns that you should add to the list, but it's maybe not that one. Thank you for your kind attention.
Hi, I'm Karen Ayub. I live in Manlius. And I'll start with my preamble. I'm going to once again request that the board proceed slowly and very deliberately with each and every item on your agenda. You currently have a very busy work schedule and the agenda is huge. The people within Manlius, that's a large volume of information for all of us to try to digest. I tried to get through as much as I could, but I know we all have families and jobs and it's difficult. So I think as a board, you owe the town of Manlius residents the opportunity to have time to digest everything that is before you. My comments on the draft comprehensive plan. The draft comprehensive plan for the town of Manlius is a large document in excess of 80 pages, not including the appendix. There's a lot of excellent information within the pages of that document, but the expansive information in those pages requires significant time to digest and evaluate. One thing stood out to me, and that was the rezoning. Currently, much of the town of Manlius is considered RA. I believe that's residential agriculture. Sometimes I've seen it referred to as restricted agriculture. The comprehensive plan appears to rezone a very significant portion of that property within the town into what's now called mixed density residential, described as residential uses ranging from single to multi-family housing on lots in varying sizes and configurations. A blanket change in zoning is opening the door to development in areas that are currently protected by the RA zone designation. Where I live on Watervale, between Water.
The comprehensive plan does not do any rezoning.
It looked like it from the colored in map.
It does not change any of by adopting the plan, no zone change is affected in anywhere in the town.
Well, there are two zoning maps. One shows,
The future land use map. Future land.
is that what it is?
It's proposed. Yeah.
Proposed, all right. But so if you adopt that, because there are federally protected wetlands back there, if you adopt that plan, is that
cutting the way for someone to come in and develop what was previously restricted
Anything
agriculture.
that's currently zoned a certain way would require a zone change. That being said, there is something on the agenda about funding the zone revision where the plan is to look at the comprehensive plan. Work with zoning professionals to understand how does the zoning need to be adjusted. To me, I know a resident actually just asked about this earlier, understanding that process. Comprehensive plan is a set of goals. Our hope is to get to a point where we can engage professionals to tell us, this is how we need to update our zoning map to meet these goals. One of the main goals being preserving agricultural space.
Which the public would have.
But just to be clear, the comprehensive plan does not rezone any parcel within the town of
Good,
Manlius.
because that map scared me, because it was had wetlands in a medium density.
But just because there, none of the zones will be changed by the adoption of this plan.
That's, we can't do that unless we.
Good, I was worried, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh, Next up, we will have the person in the name.
Good evening. My name is Mark Matt. I'm a resident of the village of Fayetteville. Know all of you. I am not speaking in my official capacity as a trustee of the village of Fayetteville. I'm speaking as an individual today, just so we put that right on the table, okay? I personally want to thank you for the town for completing the comprehensive plan. This should have been done many, many years ago, and it's a requirement for grants and most funding programs. The village of Fayetteville has completed a comprehensive plan in place for years, and we completed the most recent revision. And your own Sarah Bollinger was a member of our committee as well. So I understand the work and the difficulty of the process of what you're working with. I read the town of Manlius comprehensive plan and also did some of my own research. And I found some major issues for the town as outlined by the plan. Number one, residential development and housing density. Proposed high-density housing close to dense housing, also known as villages, creates additional stress on the villages. And adjacent to the reason they're adjacent to the villages because development provides for transportation, links, water and sewers, and to put them bluntly, I mean, infrastructure is in place already. Please work with Oprah, Onondaga County Web. And also look at your zoning to open up areas away from villages for development of residential areas. An example of that might possibly be looking at is the town center development model. And that model could provide for more than just housing, but affordable housing, multi-purpose development, and a sense of community for the residents. I hope your vision is to move away from the traditional suburban development model. I think that's very, very important, by the way. Agricultural sustainability is a very difficult thing to maintain. We're losing the diversity we once had in our agricultural areas. Our town no longer has a dairy herd, one of the dominant agricultural businesses in New York State. Solar farms and residential development are putting a very large pressure on agriculture, and we'll see a great deal more pressure on agriculture in the future as well. And we need to preserve our agricultural areas. Our local small quarry is another issue. Limestone quarries extend back to the building of the Erie Canal in our region. It's part of our history. It's a difficult issue. As a resident of Fayetteville, I recognize the benefits to my community. Currently, not only does my village use the products from the local quarry, but so does almost every other municipality in central New York. And I'm sure that the 81 project as Micron will want to buy from local quarries rather than use more fossil fuel to ship gravel, etc. The village of Fayetteville also works with a local quarry to compost leaves and compost yard waste. I have also recently created another partnership with our local quarry as a location compost kitchen waste. That partnership has also been approved by New York State DEC. Quarries can provide a challenge, however, they are under very strict environmental regulations, and we should be smart to support them as a large, vital part of our community's economy, connecting to business here as they've done for decades. I would suggest allowing them to move to the normal planning process. and then to the zoning board of appeals to see if any accommodations are needed. Let the process answer the questions. Partners, I noticed that you've listed limited partners applying the comprehensive plan. As outlined, your own Sustainable Manlius group will be the busiest group in the whole town of Manlius. Please find other partners. Don't overwork these people. Volunteer fatigue is a very real problem. We have over 30,000 people in the town of Manlius, and we need more than just the same small group of individuals doing all the work. Climate smart community programs are not everything, and they should not be, and there can be a good guide, but DEC changes the actions on a regular basis. The available affordable housing, the viability of our small businesses, and the cultural and recreational resources of our community are all just as important. Lastly, I understand that the number one issue is public outreach.
Is what?
Public outreach.
Public outreach.
Outreach, yes. The same small number of residents ask questions and participate in questionnaires. How many residents actually read all 70+ pages of the comprehensive plan? It's a problem whenever we seek input from the public. Our community will be changing very rapidly due to Micron, New York State involvement, climate change, and many things we can't foresee. Now you've used your guide, you've completed your comprehensive plan, use it as a guide. It is not a mandate, and plan on redoing the comprehensive plan every 2 to 5 years to reflect the changes that we've anticipated. Thank you.
Next up, we have someone from Zoom.
Hello, my name is John Belton. I live on Gulf Road, adjacent to the Horseshoe Lane community. I want to echo the opposition to the zone change that would permit the new quarry. I applaud the comprehensive plan. I want to reiterate one of the issues. The current quarry is getting close to its useful life. Whether it gets an extension or not will depend on whether the new quarry is approved. I would assume if a new quarry is approved, that hole in the ground will cease to operate. And as typically the case with many oil wells, gas wells, quarries, and mines, they're abandoned. And the corporation that runs it declares bankruptcy for that particular parcel. My concern is the town of Manlius will be left with a huge hole in the ground to maintain. These places are dangerous, potentially toxic. So I would urge the board to be concerned with tying some sort of monetary leash to whatever is left over should that quarry cease to operate. We don't want the taxpayers of the town to have to deal with it. Thank you for allowing my comment.
I know we have one more person in the audience.
Evening, everyone. Evening. My name is Casey Cleary. I've been a resident of the town for 24 years, 3 in the village of Manlius and 20 in the village of Fayetteville. First, I just want to thank Councilors Bollinger and Waters for your leadership. When you said you were going to do a comprehensive plan, I really didn't believe that it would be something as comprehensive in process as what you have done. I want to thank Allison Weber for coordinating tons of surveys and focus group data and all the many things that she was called upon to do. Thanks to the steering committee and thanks to the town board and all the hundreds of people who participated in many ways in developing this plan. You can hear that this plan was not written with one voice or one perspective. It was written, it really does read like a community's document. I'm going to repeat one of your points is that I participated in listening to the quarry study sessions, which were brilliant, all of them. But the Attorney Douglas Attorney Doug Zemelis, was the scariest of them all, in terms of the quarry. And I did not know what would happen if we approve a quarry, until he explained that once you approve that quarry, we all, as a town, lose any power over what happens. We lose any ability to go back to the developer and say, we have been harmed in our health, in our property, in any of those ways, because we have given up that control. We give up the control to the developers and the states, and we are out of it. And I don't think everyone understands that. It's a very scary prospect. It wouldn't surprise anyone, because I participated in the listening session on the Haudenosaunee, that I want to commend us for including that work in a couple of implementation items. That is the Onondaga Nation of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy is our neighbors, and they live on land that was taken from them 257 years ago, that is now being recognized internationally as a human rights violation. And one of the things that has been most serious has been taking their 2.5 million acres and taking it down to just a few thousand. And in here, we as a community are not proposing anything radical. We're proposing that we're going to try to understand better by exploring opportunities with our current archaeological programs in the high school, and by continuing to what they call polish the chain, which is to create a relationship between each other that is current, that we don't forget about. And I think having this in the plan is a very important step in that direction. I have recently had the blessing of having an infant, a newborn in my life. And I also pay attention to the news a lot, and the frequency and severity of what's happening on our climate globally is still shocking to me, though I've been told about this for most of my 65 years. But when I look into the eyes of a newborn, and he is so joyful, and he's so pure, and he's so healthy, and I think about in the year 2043, what will the world be like for this little guy? And I hope that we will proceed with great urgency in doing what you proposed fast, so we can get to the next level of this, and that our villages and town will be working together on that. I hope we're going to adopt this soon, because I really want to get to implementation. There's so many great things that are outlined, and so many opportunities for people to participate. To me, we don't need to hold this up, with all respect. This has been going on since many of these people were elected in 2020, first Sarah in 2017, and then in 2019. A lot has gone into this, and a draft has been available to us for a very long period of time. So let's vote on it and celebrate what we have done together as a town.
Thank you.
I'm Tim Kelly. You guys knew that, but resident of Fayetteville. Similar to Trustee Matt, I am not speaking in the capacity as my role as chairman of the ZBA. I wanted to follow up on a question that I had asked at the last public hearing. Councilor Bollinger, do you have, so again, like I had said at the last meeting, the town board approved $150,000 for a 19-month program to do the comprehensive plan. Do you know at this point exactly what has been spent, now that we've gone quite a bit beyond that?
I would say that, so I can let you know, we still don't have the final invoice, because we still don't have the final plan. They are going to write the comments that we've been receiving and include that into a final version. So I have not forgotten your request to have a full reporting at the end, but the end is not yet.
At this date, aside from the invoice you're waiting on, do you know how much has been spent?
About 100,000.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Please, Grant.
Well, that's an important point, yes. You know.
Everyone, Bob Wheeler, I'm a resident of Manlius. I am speaking as my official capacity as a retired citizen of Manlius. I just wanted to thank everybody. As I read through the report today, I was incredibly impressed by the boundaries that you set. Ones that could benefit all. I see people who are from the business community who I've known since I've been here, and they want to make a living. But you know, I think they want to make a living in a place that they can be proud of. And when I've traveled in my previous life, which I traveled quite a bit, you would see areas that, and it'd be cool to live there. And what was the common thread? The common thread was always caretaking of the environment, of the natural resources, and a weaving of the business community and local businesses. We've seen examples throughout Onondaga County often that short-term gain, somebody talked about short-term gain that looks really good, and then it brings on long-term strife. Things that you just have to clean up afterwards because it wasn't thought out. It wasn't really taken with the kind of planning that was put in here, where we take a look at what are our needs going to be with the environmental concerns that we have, with the developmental concerns, with Micron. If that happens the way we think it's going to happen, probably won't. Things usually don't happen the way we think they're going to happen. But I thought the plan included the type of flexibility for all and set clear boundaries that, quite frankly, I haven't seen at times when we put up, 3 pharmacies in close proximity and then wonder why 2 of them closed, or, one is on life support, et cetera. We can all come up with those examples. So, I support the plan. I'll continue to support it. I'll hold you accountable for it, especially with weaving the protection of the environment, which I believe is our greatest resource in central New York. And I will help out as much as I can. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? I want to speak to this stuff. Is there anyone else who is interested in making a public comment for this public hearing? Show of hands. Okay. Be our last comment. You have the chair.
So I have less of a comment and more of a question, and it has to do with board member Alyssa Italiano's response. Yes, this is not a zone change, but I want to bring to the board's attention at least the experience I understand that occurred with the current quarry when it once attempted its expansion in 1996. And it was successfully sued, and it was sued by Rogers and Connors because the plan that the town didn't have a comprehensive plan. And so the judge ruled, Parker Stone, that the quarry was a, quote, illegal spot zoning. Now, I've looked at the future land use segment of the plan, and there's nothing designated in the new 200+ acres that indicate a quarry. So it may be that our neighbors who are fighting the new quarry have the benefit of a legal position that says, you didn't have this in the plan, therefore, if you approve a zone change, it's illegal spot zoning. Now, I'm not here to advocate against that. I'm just saying, it seems to me that if you have a comprehensive plan, you have to have provisions for what the future land use is going to be. I also find it a little bit, I'll say, disingenuous that you have areas that are designated for multiple use and more density and say, well, this is in the zone change. But of course, having created the comprehensive plan that anticipates that, you make it not only easier, but legally more likely that those changes will occur. So if you want to fight them, you point back to the plan that you've created and say, well, but it's in the plan. And yeah, you can change the plan, I suppose, but you have that grounding that otherwise might not exist. I'm not an attorney. I just know what I read in the paper and in a whole lot of legal documents. And perhaps, the town attorney can comment on what I've had to say. But that's my impression of what the plan does and doesn't do, at least vis-a-vis the proposed new quarry. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was looking at the future map as well, and I do want to just note that there's two yellows in that, and one of them is low density and one of them is mixed use, so do check to make sure that that is what we're reading, because I looked at it and I was like, well, that is a lot of yellow, and then I realized that the light yellow means low density, and then the darker yellow means mixed use. Just in my eye, so I just.
And I would make I can make a comment for the public hearing process. Or, yeah, I'll make a comment afterwards about that.
One to share.
So I received a letter from Mayor Olson, and he did not ask that I read the whole thing into the record, just that I would note that I received it, that it was in favor of supporting the quarry that is a vital business to the Fayetteville community, and the ways that it serves the local municipalities.
Allison, did Mayor Olson send that in his capacity as Mayor Olson of the Village of Fayetteville or legislator Mayor Olson, legislator Olson of the county?
We did not discuss that. It came from his M. Wilson and Fayetteville and my.gov, so that is how I took that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you may change your mind, I'm gonna make another comment. Okay. I think the motion to close the vote.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? All right, opposed? Okay, motion carries. So with that, public hearing coming to a close, where we're at now with the comprehensive plan is that the comments will be, transmitted to, the firm that's helping us on the comprehensive plan. It will be, incorporated into it, and I think the plan is to bring that,
John, may I say something? I just wanted to let the audience know that we also received some written testimony from people between meetings. So I just want people to know that there has been some emails or just comments or different things that so people did sort of know this was going on and have responded since 2 weeks ago. So I just wanted people to be aware of that. And we have collected all of that information. It's all part of the public record and will be sent to our consultant to integrate into the final version of the document.
Did you want to talk about a timeline or do you want me to? Okay, so I thought that it was really interesting that Mark Matt, not in his trustee capacity, though, was bringing up the idea of pressure that could be placed on the villages by housing and things like that. And so I think that it's an interesting perspective. Everything that's on the future land use map is a result of all the subcommittee work, all the survey work. It's a function of, it's not there just because of that, oh, we need something there. There's data and there's rationale behind all of it. So that means that if you have a specific question about an area and why it was chosen and you don't, and right now you don't see, just like Elaine said, Councilor Denton said, the difference, maybe didn't notice the difference between the light yellow and the dark yellow, whatever, please reach out to us. And because we want to know if something like that needs to be clearer in the final document. We also have an executive summary in the beginning that allows people to get kind of a quick take and maybe help them use the table of contents and dig into the section that they're most interested in. And it's a living document that that we have to refer back to all the time and use as a guide. It is not prescriptive. It is literally something that we can use to set our agenda and refer back to. But I thought it was interesting to think about how we work with our partners. This is not a siloed process to go and do this. It's just, we wanted to not just speak as a town board, but speak on behalf of the role of the people. When we're setting future agendas and making decisions that impact people's lives, like zoning for a new quarry, which would impact the lives of multiple generations and 100+ years. So that's why there was such a considerable effort to be made, for example, this core study group that had met 5 times, brought in experts. We now know, you'll see later on the agenda, that we are placing a high priority on a townwide stormwater analysis. We are going to look at our zoning, and for sure, if we discussed an interest in concentrating, or not even concentrating, but utilizing mixed use better than we ever have, and in a way that reflects who we are and what we want. Yeah, that's true. It is going to impact the zoning, further to Craig Dussack's point, but I think what's interesting is that we have, it's an embarrassment of riches now, because when we first came on board, we had a Route 92 corridor study that was 20+ years old, and no other guidance to even have conversation. And now we have the benefit of actually having had multiple conversations. So if there's disagreement or concern, it's a good thing. That means that we've actually, we're getting things on the table and getting some real, also something that we can discuss with the villages with more information behind us. Bob Wheeler mentioned the fact that we have multiple pharmacies in one place, and inside village centers, which are our commercial centers, we do not have any zoning, we do not have any jurisdiction. So that means we must, if we want our commercial centers to be thriving, supportive places for the rest of the town, we do need to work really closely with the villages and understand what's happening in the village of Manlius, what's happening in the village of Manoa, and what's happening in the village of Fayetteville. So we are interdependent, and I hope that that comes across in the message too, and that it's not a black and white document, like literally, but also, you know, we don't want to see major contradictions, but we want to show. I think there's an overall theme that we try to seek expert advice and not just rely on whatever is available to us in a very cursory way. We want to rely on the planning agencies and the best practices that are around us, and how grateful we are to have professional staff. Thank you to that comment at the beginning, who are the keepers of this data and help people access it, much the way that librarians do as a service. So thank you very, very much.
Yes, any other comments? Okay. So moving on, I would look, no, we're gonna do.
Which is what we're gonna do, kind of like, we're gonna keep the hearing, we're gonna close the hearing, but in order to do everything we just said, and as Sarah just said, Deputy Supervisor Bollinger just said, we will seek to vote the next meeting.
Completed the finance.
Moved by Holland. Thank you.
So next up, we do have 2 public hearings, one about the Skyridge Water District Improvement Project, and another about the Skyridge Water District Extension number 1. I believe the goal is to do secret.
Yeah, so before we enter into the public hearing, I'd like to kind of go through part 2 of the law environmental assessment form, which I have already reviewed. And so that we can be in a position at the next meeting to ultimately make a secret determination as to the environmental significance of the project. As I said, I've gone through there's 11 questions. There's 16 questions. I'm sorry, 18 questions. And based on my review of it, we have to keep in mind what we're considering, and that is a water extension project. That would be 31,000 linear feet. A 6-mile extension of 6-mile implementation of a water line along Salt Springs Road into the town of Sullivan. As we go through these questions, I think what you'll find is a lot of them are not relevant and do not really speak to that type of project, which is on an existing road, which has already been built, and water lines are put in roads all the time. And so the environmental significance of that project will be impacts of that project as we go through this, we'll be determined by whether or not we think the initial answer is yes.
I lost that last part. Say it again. We've got this fan thing going here and it's hard for us.
So the ultimate decision on the environmental impact will be based on the answers to these questions.
Right.
Whether it's a yes or it's a no. Okay, so it's up to the town board to make these decisions. It's their opinion. The ones that were elected to make these decisions. So they're gonna make these decisions and then at the next meeting, we'll make the final determination on. Okay. So the first question is impact on land. Will the proposed action involve construction on or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site? So the initial reaction to that would be sure. If you read the sub questions, which we will, so we'll say yes to that question. But if you read the sub questions, it really talks about vacant land or land that will be developed. This, of course, is a 6-mile stretch of existing road that has already been in terms of that specific land. So let's say yes. Then we have to determine whether under the sub question it's going to be no or small impact or moderate to large impact.
No.
Well, then we'll go through the questions. A is the proposed action may involve construction on land where depth of water table is less than 3 feet. So again, this is road, and I think the answer to that is no or small. The quote, does everybody agree with that?
Potentially going on someone's land.
Isn't
it also potentially going on someone's land for the storage?
There's yeah, that would have to be this.
But yeah, but that would be just a small impact to the land itself, because there would be very little impact on the land. Unless you think otherwise. Yeah. So it's the disturbance of the land, but we're not talking about the significant disturbance of the land. Because that's what the question is.
Look, I mean, do we disturb it, doesn't mean go back.
Yeah. So, notice small for A, the proposed action may involve construction on slopes of 15% or greater. I know. Over the course of the road. Proposed action may involve construction on land where bedrock is exposed or generally within 5 feet of the existing ground surface. Notice small. Please, if you disagree with that, let me know. The proposed action may involve the excavation or removal of more than 1,000 tons of natural material.
No, that's good.
The proposed action may involve, well, no, nothing will be removed.
Oh,
So the proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year on or in multiple phases. We estimate, I think, pardon me, is estimated that it would be a
One less than the entire project will happen in one construction season, outside of any major.
So notice one.
notice small. Proposed action may result in increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal. Notice small. And the proposed action is or may be located within a coastal erosion hazard area. Notice small. Okay. So while the initial answer is yes, the sub-question answers are no to small impact. Does everybody agree with that? Okay. Will there be any impact on geological features such as cliffs, dunes, minerals, fossil things? No. Correct?
Right.
It's happening
On a road.
on a road that is already been estimated.
So the answer to that is no. Impacts on surface water, streams, rivers, ponds, or lakes.
No small.
No, is the answer, right? It won't impact any of those. Impacts on groundwater, proposed action may result in a new or additional use of groundwater or may have the potential to introduce contamination to groundwater or to an aquifer.
No.
If anything,
Because we're not, they're just not that.
No, it's a road.
Yeah.
So we're constructing in a road or in a road that.
Right. Okay, quick question. If there's a drainage situation, thinking of something like North Depot Village, where there's, you're doing something in the road. But it did impact the drainage that was used to be there, for example.
This is groundwater. This is,
Yeah, no, that's my water.
Every year.
Any land that's everything.
But there, that is, there's a little, I guess, but there is, you know, that when they put the water, when they put the new pipe in on the other
all right, so
side.
let's go through the sub questions in number 4. Proposed action may require new water supply wells or create additional demand on supplies for existing water supply wells. Well, that's interesting. This is to provide water, but so it will not require new water, new wells, right? Water supply demand from the proposed action may exceed safe and sustainable withdrawal capacity rate of the local supply or an aquifer. I'll read it again, water supply demand. No, but this is going to affect the demand for water in an aquifer. But no.
Well, it was for the water.
The proposed action may allow or result in residential uses in areas without water and sewer services. Building a water line will allow or result in residential uses in areas without water and sewer services. I guess the impact on that would be positive.
Yeah.
Would provide.
Yes.
The proposed action may include or require wastewater discharge to groundwater. No. The proposed action may result in the construction of a water supply wells in locations where groundwater is or suspects to be contaminated. No. The proposed action may require the bulk storage of petroleum or chemical products over groundwater or aquifer. No. The proposed action may involve the emergency application of pesticides within 200 feet of potable drinking water. So if we even answer that question, impacts on water for yes, these sub questions are no to small impact. Everybody agree with that? Impacts on flooding, proposed action may result in development on land subject to flooding. This is a road. So the answer would be no. Everybody agree with that? The road's already constructed.
It's not gonna say, it's not. Not where we're going, no, there isn't plenty of where we're talking about.
I hope there's not flooding on the road. I mean, if there's flooding on the road, there's a drainage, you wouldn't have to take care of it. Impact on air, the proposed action may include a state regulated air emissions or this line. No. Impacts on plants and animals, the proposed action may result in a loss of flora or fauna. No. It's a road, there's no flora on the road, right? Yeah, but even on the side of the road, there's no.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Impacts on agricultural use. The proposed action may impact agricultural use. Anybody? Here's that. Okay, impact on aesthetic resources. Land of use proposed action obviously different from or in sharp contrast to current land use patterns between the project and a scenic aesthetic resource. Impacts on historic and archaeological resources. Proposed action may occur in or adjacent to a historical or archaeological resource. Impact on open space and recreation. Proposed action may result in a loss of recreational opportunities or reduction of an open space resource as designated in any adopted municipal open space plan. Impact on the critical environmental area, the only critical environmental area, the Gulf Woods. We have it, so we want to have that. Impact on transportation, the proposed action may result in a change to existing transportation system. Impact on energy, the proposed action may cause an increase in the use of any form of energy. New substation means anything will require new substations. energy transmission or supply lines, any of that stuff. Impact on noise, odor, and what proposed action may result in an increase in noise, odor, and outdoor lighting.
Does that take into consideration in construction?
Well,
Question.
the construction component of it is really running under the impacts on land. That's why the question is, how long will it stay?
Yeah.
And we construct roads all the time, right? So they will- that's what it's for. So the answer is no. Impact on human health, proposed action may have an impact on human health and exposure to new or existing resources or contaminations. No. Consistency with community plan, the proposed action is not consistent with an adopted land use plan. No. And consistency with community character, the proposed project is inconsistency with the existing community character.
Like under a road, that you can't see it, it's consistent.
So it isn't. So the answer is that. All right, so those are the 18 questions, which we've considered over the course of the next 2 weeks when we listen to the public, hear what they have to say. Then we'll ultimately make a determination in terms of whether or not there would be a serious, significant environmental impact as a result of the project itself. And we won't make that decision tonight, we'll listen to the public.
Okay, so I know, the way we have it on the agenda was the extension and then the district project, but I'd like to ask for us to do the improvement project first. That's okay with everybody? And I'm looking for a motion to waive the reading of the public notice.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading of the public notice.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. For a motion to open.
And I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing for the Skyridge Water District Improvement Project.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, opposed? Okay, carries. So that is the opening of the public hearing for the Skyridge Water District Improvement Project. I think we have a representative from the Skyridge Water District. If you'd like to come up and contribute.
Can you clarify, there's two public hearings, so that we know we're addressing the right one for the public. You know, which of the two hearings we talked about?
Number 7. Not number
So, no, I understand that, but that they're both kind of all one big project in mind of the people, but.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I think it would be appropriate for general comments on the project happen in the first public hearing. Whereas the second public hearing is specifically for that extension district. Seeing as the bulk of the project is concerning the Skyridge Water District. So if you have general comments about the overall project, I would ask that those are in this public hearing rather than holding on to those. For later.
Good evening, my name is Mark Stanbro. I reside on Horseshoe Lane in the town of Manlius, and I'm here on behalf of the Skyridge Water District. We recently surveyed each resident in the water district, and the unanimous decision is that we would like the town board to pursue funding to construct a new water main and related improvements to deliver municipal water to our district and to clear paths for veterans pursuant to the resolution introduced by the board's meeting on June 28th. We've collected signatures in support of the project from each resident and have submitted those to the board. As you all know, the condition of our current system is beyond the end of its useful life, and we have been petitioning to the board for assistance for over 15 years. We feel that this may be our last chance for municipal water, and we implore the board to make this a priority. We understand that there will be an update later this year on potential costs to each residence after funding applications are returned, and we eagerly look forward to that discussion. Thank you for your attention to the situation.
Thank you. So, just as a reminder for what this project is we are looking at taking on an improvement project for a water district. We just heard that there's unanimous approval from the folks living in that water district that they would like us to pursue essentially the weed grant. That is to be clarified as well. The potential bonding for this project is the town of Manlius bonding on behalf of the water district to fund that project, all of which, the cost of the project will be paid by the folks in the water district and the potential extensions. Less any funding that comes in, such as the REIT grant, such as any other funding that does come in from other sources. So I wanted to just remind the board of that before we move on. So I would ask if you're in the Zoom audience, please use the raise hand function, and then just show of hands who would like to come up and make a comment.
Yes, hello, Stephen Benson, and I live up on Salt Springs Road. So here we are again, it's been almost a decade. The people on Salt Springs Road almost unanimously put this down a short time ago. And so I just point that out. One thing I want to bring to your attention is that in all this time, since Clear Path got up and led the Pledge of Allegiance on the first meeting back in 16 or 15. I've yet to see any characterization of the development that's going to go in Sky Ridge, in where they have their Clear Path properties, and whoever owns it, who's going to benefit. Okay. I've been living and running around up there for 60 years. And the property has had a real troubled past. It's at the point now where they want to make it work. And now I see the language come out about aggressive development, aggressive expansion. The meter would be larger in diameter than the typical installed for a residential house and service, and will need to be sized for accurate metering of a minimum projected peak water. Due to the planned water uses of the Clear Path property, it is envisioned that a single master meter pit would be installed near the service connection point for Clear Path. There's no doubt in my mind that there is significant developmental expansion objectives for that property that's been fallow for 60 years. Well, I tried back and forth for many years. What is it? What's going up there? So the question about the traffic, what's going in there? The mind goes crazy because we don't see the transparency. And I hope, beyond hope, that Clear Path hasn't led Horseshoe down a hopeless path. Can we see what the plans are? We're clearly showing that they need a lot more water. Why? I follow the military every day. All the developments, all the wars, all the fights, and we are not increasing our military need for this kind of service. So I'd like to see what the plans are in that regard for the future. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
So can you tell me what page you read that from? Is it from my-
Yeah, it's coming out of Garden of Judas, 23.
Thank
2023.
you.
Next up. Oh, we'll do the front first and we'll do the back.
Good evening. My name is Mary Karpinski and I live on Salt Springs Road. Prior to this meeting, 20 residents of Salt Springs Road submitted a list of questions that we had. We had reviewed the plans for the extension project, and we also are concerned about the process of all of this. We received the information about the extension plan 2 days ago. We really haven't had the time to go through it and read it thoroughly, and yet we're going to be making decisions on it. I listened as you talked about the environmental impact assessment form. Have any of you come up to Salt Springs Road? Any of you? Have you looked at Salt Springs Road? Have you looked at the houses there? 66 homes. Our homes are on very distances from the road, but a lot of the things that people from Horseshoe Lane talked about, your concerns about health and environmental impact. If this construction project goes through, that will be
Just a
impacting
reminder,
us.
comments are to the board.
This will be impacting us. We'll have to be concerned about the noise, the dust and the rock. And you're talking about trenching 6 miles up Salt Springs Road. Why haven't other engineers taken a look at the needs of the people of Horseshoe Lane? Why is it Barton and LaJudas? Barton and LaJudas, pushed this through on June 14th. They gave very little notice. You all received documents just hours before the meeting. You were asked to make a decision because they didn't have forms in on June 16th. What's going on here? Why is Barton and LaJudas so interested? I read through the budget, which was in the appendix G. They stand to make, if this goes through, $2.8 million. They made you promises of grants to go forward with this project. Yet I looked at those grants. It's all hypothetical. You really don't know. So why don't you slow things down? Come on, take a look at Salt Springs Road. You can come to my house. I'll take you on a tour of the road. I'd be happy to talk about the environment that's around the road that you kind of overlooked as you're making decisions about this environmental impact assessment form. Come and see and listen and do the same thing up at Horseshoe Lane. Thank you.
Thank you. So, like, yeah.
I think there's one of the.
Oh, yeah, there was someone prior.
Please hold your mouth.
And just as a side note, the intention is to hold these public hearings open until the next meeting. So if there's any questions about, getting some time to look at stuff, we are holding these open for the next meeting before any actions taken.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Melissa Spicer, and I don't know most of you, and I apologize for that. Just because I know there's a lot of confusion within the community of who I am and what ClearPath is. I speak to you as a citizen of the town of Manlius. Outside of ClearPath, as many of you know, I am the founder, but just to give you a sense of who I am as a person. My family has lived here for 6 generations, and my husband and his brother own the Foster's Tavern, which is on the corner of South Eagle Village and 173, the oldest home in the town of Manlius. And I've been here my entire life. Our farm is 278 acres that we're currently under consideration of preserving. 12 years ago, I was very familiar with the Sky Ridge Golf Course, swam there as a kid. My husband fixed the pool. An investment in this property was nothing more for a betterment of our community. I have a saying, and I believe in this, I am a businesswoman, but I'm also a fan of my community. I've lived here my whole life, and I often say that those of us that live here, we're either really foolish or we're committed. And I think I like to believe we're committed. The site of Sky Ridge was selected on purpose, regardless of all of its warts, its lack of water and all of that, because I knew this community with its deep, rich history knew and would know how to set an example to serve the veterans and military and our families. And I understand the gentleman said that there is no need, but there is a continuous need, because the responsibility of taking care of our veterans, in my opinion, falls on the community, and it should be not transactional, it should be for a lifetime. But I say to you this evening that I understand the concerns of my community, my beloved community, Salt Springs Road and all of that. I know all the farmers, I know everybody. And I just want to promise you and the community, from my standpoint, that anything that we do on that site as the property owner, I have a 55-year lease with ClearPath. I should be dead, long and gone by the time that happens. And upon my death, it is going to ClearPath. So I am making a promise to all of you as the landowner that there is no ill intent. There is only the one single effort to make this a good model for other communities to emulate. So thank you for your time.
Just again, anybody who's joining via Zoom, please use the raise hand function. Yeah.
My name is Jim Drace, and I'm gonna guess half of South Springs Road is made up of the people who did not want water. Okay? You're asking us to pay for it now.
No.
No, okay, let's just. Take a second, remind ourselves, this is a public hearing. One person is to approach the podium at a time and make comments.
What's my,
Move on to the next person, just limiting crosstalk. We do also have new owls that are more significantly more sensitive to crosstalk, so please be mindful of that. Please.
that's my question. Are you asking us to pay for it? And you're saying no?
So just the way that this works is this is an improvement project
Yeah,
for the existing Skyridge Water District.
okay.
They and any extensions to that district will bear the full responsibility for paying for this project.
Including taxes.
No, this is a separate, so when you're in a water district, just like if you're in a drainage or a lighting district, there's a separate line item on your tax bill
Yeah,
that comes from a completely separate fund. So right now, those residents, I think, are paying $600 a year. $700 a year to put money into their specific fund that can only be spent on their water district.
so I will never see that on my.
You will never see a water, unless of course. Your neighbors decide they'd like to form a water district in the future. I don't think that is the case. But you would be notified if there would be ever a responsibility for you to have to bear any of the costs of this project.
Okay, thank you.
And I will say too, we have recently tried very seriously to make sure that this odd way that districts are formed, it's kind of this chicken and an egg, is you need a district so that you can levy taxes or levy funds to manage the district. However, you need a map plan and report to form a district. So we have been working, yeah, which costs money, a very good chunk of it. So we have been very mindful of that fact that we are endeavoring to spend no general fund money from the bulk taxpayers to fund water district projects. We had a recent application and we let them know that yes, they will have to independently fund a map plan and report for our engineer to review if they want to create a water district. So that's something that we're taking very seriously. So I know we've run into some issues in the past. And again, it further complicates district creation, but that is something that we're endeavoring to make sure that it's abundantly clear. This is for a district. The district is the only one that bears the responsibility of paying for this project.
A quick history refresher for folks, the last time this project came to the board, the proposed water district included Salt Springs residents who many chose not to want to form water district. And that is why the proposal is back again with a completely different set of folks who are taking responsibility for it.
No one who is right now, unless you live in Skyridge or in one of the extensions that's proposed, you will not be required to pay for this, you will not be required to hook into the water system. It's just another pipe under it, just another utility. Would you like to come on?
Karen Ayub again. On that same note, I have a question. So to protect the town, does the town residents, there are 34,000 residents, to protect the town, is there a valid exit plan for the town to get out? Because your lead sponsor, is there an exit plan if the grants don't come through as anticipated? And it's almost $14 million. What if they can only get grants for 3 million of it? So suppose how do you exit from it so that we are not committed to something hugely expensive? That's a huge part of the town budget.
Absolutely. So the way that works is, again, we are in a very preliminary stage. That's why these map plan reports are not exhaustive documents for the whole project. The costs you see are estimated, generally they are inflated to provide extra protection and contingencies.
Until
and so-
COVID made cost overages that we never see, and they're still going on.
Exactly. So it has been communicated with the residents who will eventually be the ones paying for this, that when we get to a point, so as we move forward, if we get the WIA grant, we'll continue to find funding. If we don't get the WIA grant, we will completely change course and come up with a new solution with the water. If we do get that WIA grant, that's basically the clock starts to get as many funding sources together as possible prior when construction would potentially begin in 2025. And at some point, it would be sole discretion of the town board as to whether or not to move forward. In the conversations I've had with Skyridge residents, I've made abundantly clear that if it is my decision to be making, we would be bringing them the list of all the funding we require with a new per EDU cost. And that they would again be asked to weigh in as to whether or not that is affordable for them. So if the funding doesn't appear, the bond will never be issued. So we will not be borrowing any money until we are aware of what funding is available and committed. And we've been working diligently with bond council, to understand that exact process.
I think the town should, for the safety of all of us, because if the bond doesn't get paid, you are the guarantor, we are ultimately the guarantor. That there should be a budget, a limit set, because there's an enthusiasm, we all want public water, and I understand it, I want everyone to have public water. But there are 34,000 residents that could potentially, we're the fallback, we're the second guarantors, basically, if something defaults, we get it. So.
If someone default, yeah.
I just want to let her.
So there needs to be a limit. We have to have something that is reasonable that is where the town says that's it. And will we discuss that when will we all know, will that be an open discussion so we can all,
So
know
next
what-
meeting, we'll have more details on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have more details next
We'll
week.
be considering bond resolutions at the next meeting, which would address the majority of that concern.
I'll sit in the back.
Could you explain, John, what happens when if someone in an individual?
Yeah, So one of the concerns that we did bring up, and I did talk to our receiver of taxes about, is that, let's say, for example, a resident in the Skyridge Water District, after this project is done, says, I don't want to pay my portion of the bond, I don't want to pay that. You are not allowed to make a partial payment, you are not allowed to pay part of your taxes. You're allowed to do partial payments. I want to make sure I don't misrepresent the receiver of taxes. Partial payments is a thing. If you're endeavoring to pay your full bill. However, if you submit, say your tax bill is $1,000 and you send us a check for $800, you'll be receiving that check back with notification that you did not fully pay your taxes. And that if you do not send us the proper amount, that it will be going to the county for essentially collection on that owed amount. We, the town, are made whole by the county at the end of tax collection. So year to year, person to person, we do have that confidence that it would be, the county would be the one responsible for recouping those costs. When it comes to paying our bond payments, we will be made whole by the county for those payments. And then long term, obviously, that kind of goes back to how much funding can we get in? There is no intention to build this water line when the Skyridge residents will tell us this is too much money, we cannot afford that. That's something that we've discussed at length. That by the time you get there, when we know all the funding we have access to and we can give the best information to the residents, that they will essentially be the ones making that decision. And that the town board will respect the decision that's made by the Skyridge voters. So, do you want to read that?
Yes, so we have one comment online, and I believe the same individual has their hand raised. It's from Ann, and she said, who pays for project overage? Do those costs go to the town and taxpayer? Does this bonding affect Manlius's credit score?
So overages are considered in the budget. There's a significant amount of thought given to unforeseen costs, increases, inflation, things like that. Then what was the? Just put it back.
And the district would pay it over.
And the district, yes, the district will be responsible.
And that does this affect the town's credit score?
We heard from bond council that this will have a little to small effect on the overall credit rating of the town. Because again, this is a bond for a water district rather than The water district is the one responsible for the revenue stream to pay down this bond rather than the taxpayers themselves. As a, the taxpayers as a whole.
So, and so.
Yeah, if you wanna offer a promoter. Hey, and if you unmute your mic, you can, if you have any further comments you'd like to share, you are entitled to your 3 minutes. You just need to unmute. Very likely we should put it on the way, which is why she's submitted that, so we'll leave that there for now. Any other further comments from the audience?
My name is Joe Massinio, I live on South Springs. Didn't really intend to comment, but I would like to comment on some of the responses to the environmental form, because I think that needs to be looked at. And I've got several line items here. You responded no to the wetlands question, I believe, Tim.
Yes.
On the approach and right near where the water tank is going to go, there's a wetland that's probably at least an acre or 2, and I think the limit is what, a half acre? It's very hidden, it's like the creature from the Black Lagoon is gonna come out of there, but there is a wetland.
Is it, you want, DEC wetland or?
I don't know what it's designated. I think in one of the earlier forms I saw, they said it was less than half acre, but it looks a lot bigger than that to me.
Half acre, and it's, where is it on?
As you
Which
you go up
property
the
is that?
hill.
Is it this Morocco?
Yeah, it's on Morocco's land, so it'd be like just to the east of the tank, but I don't know exactly where the tank goes. We just can approximate.
We will.
So we did just look in the map and report, there are no DEC map wetlands within the area. So, but we will look at.
Do look at it because it's more than a half acre. The other thing is, you mentioned that there was potentially not as much as 1,000, less than 1,000 tons of overage. When you excavate and you take out compacted rock and you fracture it, first of all, you can't put it back in on top of a pipe. You have to put a bed of some material like sand or gravel. You have to put some on top of it, and there's most likely going to be an excessive amount of overburden. I don't know if you're familiar with boulders. We did this in my basement. A truckload of this kind of material is many, many tons. So I refute the fact that 6 miles is not going to have more than 1,000 tons of overburden. The grade near the tank needs to be evaluated. That's a pretty steep grade. 15% is not that great, but as you approach the tank, that's fairly steep. You mentioned no to the, when you said it wouldn't damage landscape features. If you look at the land from Gia Martino's to Marlene Denny, Marlene has a beautiful rock fence. There's many, many trees all along that stretch. So I believe you need to reconsider that. And to Mary's comment, you need to maybe come out there and ride down the road with us so we can point some of these things out to you.
I just, when you say landscape features, I don't remember that being.
You said, there was a section where you talked about, it was kind of in the middle of your talk about, not archaeological, specifically landscape.
Yeah, in setbacks, like when they shouldn't be in the setbacks, would they be, or that's.
Well, they're close. You understand that when you destroy the root ball of a tree, the tree will die within a number of years. So there's trees that are very close, they're very big, they're very old trees. So again,
I understand what you're.
but what I'm saying is, ride down the road with us in a little school bus and you'll see what I'm talking about. The other thing is the blasting. If they're blasting, I don't know if they're gonna blast or use a hoe ram. That may have an impact on the nearby wells. You know, the people on the road have good wells and they don't want them damaged. Sometimes when you fracture rock, you introduce new or different aquifers at different levels. That needs to be evaluated. Remember that this excavation doesn't take place in the road. It's more like in the ditch along the road, so that starts to get over to the edge. And then we, as a neighborhood, there was, how many, Mary, signed that?
We have 20 that signed.
20 signed a list of questions that maybe you can address at the next meeting. There were concerns, and mostly there were questions that we had that we were concerned about. And then one last thing on the bonding obligation, Jen. The county sounds like they back us up if the people don't pay. And I know everybody's intention is to pay, but if you have 30 taxpayers and 2 or 3 don't pay, that lands on the back of either
Manlius or the county residents, and we're kind of residents of both. The bond payments have to be made, obviously, otherwise we default. I'm in commercial lending and I dispute the opinion of the bond council. Borrowing $5 or $6 million for a town with an $18 million budget would be considered extreme leverage. Secondarily, the buyers of the bond would open up the book and look at it and say there's 30 entities paying. Most bond buyers would close the book and say we're not interested. That's a micro bond, very limited interest, which means generally it will drive up the interest rate and the cost of issuance for the bond as well. So things to consider. Thank you.
It's my understanding that we would, if the bond were going to be issued, or and we hopefully will have money off the bill next week. I think the Environmental Facilities Corporation would be one of the places we would go for the issuance of the bond, that they buy bonds for this type of bond.
Do they buy the bonds or do they just issue them?
No, we would issue them, they would buy them.
They would buy them. Okay, so if we defaulted, we would be in default to them, not individual.
But again, let's wait.
Yeah,
That one of the common way to do it.
One of the things I think you need to consider is you have to have independent sources. In other words, if the bond council is also the council that's going to get paid to do the bond, they're not a very credible source. If the engineer, Martin LaJudas, is getting paid millions of dollars, you need to have the town's engineer evaluate it, not the people who are going to make a lot of money. So are we going to hear from them?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks.
I have a letter from, hope I get this right, Joanna Martinot. Dear Mr. Deere and town board members, I am a resident of the last 25 years of Salt Spring Road. Since I am presently disabled, unfortunately, I'm not able to attend the July 12, 2023 meeting regarding the Skyridge Water District proposal that includes development of the 120-acre parcel owned by Fairpath and Skyridge LLC in Madison County. Please consider the following as a part of the concerns and objections to the project presented by the residents of Salt Springs Road who will be directly impacted by the construction of the pipeline and this project moves forward. One, if the developer of this 120 acres located in Madison County and the Skyridge residents need water, they should pay for their own. The residents of Salt Springs Road all have wells in full operation that puts out clean home drinking water. It is a known fact that the lakes, oceans, and nations drinking water are severely polluted. Why should we be forced to drink such water? For major projects, several bids for jobs are reviewed. In this case, this has not been done, which leads me to be concerned. 3, all residents and commercial land to be developed must be evaluated by top professionals in the appropriate fields. Was this done by town officials in review of the plan? 4, why is it that most homes built between Dugan Road and Palmer Road do not have basements? 5, when we bought our home 25 years ago, I designed and built a family room, which was added to our modest home built on a crawl space. I cannot begin to tell you what a project that turned out to be. It was a nightmare. What usually takes 2 months, depending on the size of the room, this project took close to a year. Why? Because of the huge rocks that need to be moved. The builder had to bring in the largest and heaviest equipment to move such huge rocks. It was a nightmare. Some of the huge rocks still remain on the property and are part of the landscape. Many others were hauled away. I am sharing this story with you and the board of directors to bring to your attention the great problem that lie ahead regarding this water project. I don't think you know or understand the enormity and difficulties that lie ahead. Why do we have a quarry? Because of the immensity of rocks. 6, if the developer wants to develop 120 acres, that's their problem. If the Horseshoe Lane subdivision needs more water for their residents, dig another well to fill their tanks or bring in an appropriate sized tank filled with town of Manlius water. 7, it is not justifiable to ask the town of Manlius taxpayers to pay for a project that does not pertain to the needs of residents. Nor should the town be obligated to pay millions of dollars for such a project. Nor should we pay higher taxes to justify this wrongful decision. I am told that 120 acres to be developed in Madison County, which has nothing to do with the Salt Spring Road residents located in Onondaga County. As a commercial architect for many years, I have dealt with many situations, this one being the worst. I highly suggest the town of Manlius reconsider this project and not take the word and the mega bucks of one engineering firm. Something is not legit. I am sure the owners of the quarry can attest to the condition of the land and geology, or else they would not have a quarry. Which brings me to suggest that the quarry would make a beautiful lake and park. I would approve that expense so we can all enjoy it. Lastly, ask yourself why our homes do not have basements. I guess now you know the answer. Respectfully submitted, Joanna Marciano, Salt Springs Road resident.
Any other comments? No?
Matt Naparella, Naparella Consulting. I'm representing Mr. Morocco today. Mr. Morocco extends his apologies for not being here. He's on business in the eastern part of the state. He just asked me to read into the record a letter that he wrote. Frankly, I haven't looked at this myself. I was made aware of this about 4 hours ago. So here I am. So this is again from Mr. Morocco. Dear town board members, I am writing to you regarding a notice that I am in receipt but was not mailed to me directly. Yet I am greatly affected by the proposition, and so are all the residents on Salt Springs Road. I am inquiring as to why the residents of Salt Springs Road have not been notified of the public hearing potential Skyridge Water District improvement and extension scheduled for July 12, 2023 to address the water system. I have roughly 143 acres of land at 8394 Salt Springs and 8490 Salt Springs Road. We are also, I think Louis Morocco owns property at the corner of Salt Springs and McClenton Road. I find it hard to believe there is a public hearing being scheduled for one neighborhood, Horseshoe Lane, and possibly Clear Path for veterans with no notice to those directly affected. Shouldn't all the residents on Salt Springs Road and anyone who is being compromised, whether it be taxes, fees, disruption during construction, possible damage to our existing wells because of blasting, be directly notified of this public hearing? Have any of these concerns been considered? Have the changes been made to the document that was supposed to be put into the law? The law requiring that once built, any subdivision would have to hook up to this new water service. I spoke with Sarah Bollinger and the engineer managing this project approximately 3 years ago about my property being used for the permanent water tower because of its elevation. I believe that my property has the highest elevation that is feasible to be utilized, yet I haven't heard from anyone since that meeting 3 years ago about a purchase, a lease, or any type of agreement regarding my property. Most people affected by this project do not need to hook up to this water. You guys went through a lot of this, but we have existing good functioning wells on Salt Springs. I do not believe that any homes have been built on Salt Springs Road in the last 10 years or more from the point of North Eagle Village Road to Salt Springs Road. This goes from Salt Springs all the way to Chittenango. So I don't know where all this demand is coming from. Is my understanding that Aqua is trying to have a loop system. Are there any line items or a study that can be provided to the public on this $13.5 million project that could possibly be unnecessary? Can I see all the line items of this complete budget, and is my land included in it? Am I a part of a line item that I am not aware of? It is troubling that no one knows about this public hearing and no information has been provided. I didn't receive the June 30, 2023 letter from the town of Manlius. It was forwarded to me. I made a call to John Deere approximately noon on July 7th with no return call. I would expect Sarah Bollinger to be in contact with me. I'm unable to attend this meeting as I will be out of town, but I will have a representative there for me along with the neighbors of Salt Springs Road. I'm requesting that this letter be read by the attorney or the town supervisor in my absence to be entered into the minutes of the meeting. I would also request that not only am I on a mailing list for all future communications about this matter, but all the residents on Salt Springs Road and anyone else directly affected. Sincerely, David C. Morocco. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks.
So, the point about the notice is well taken. I know this is something that we run into a lot, where the law tells us who needs to be notified. And many times you have to draw an arbitrary line at 500 or 1,000 feet. And the person right outside really says that I should have received the letter. I know when we send out the notices, we follow what the state tells us we have to do as far as notifying folks, which is why the notices went out as they did. Any other,
I think that's very long, but that's how.
well, we have that coming up, the opera.
Just as a point of reference, I did speak to Mr. Morocco on the 7th, after he called.
Any other public comments?
Good evening, Mr. Deere, Town Board. I am Chris Flaherty, the President and CEO of Clear Path for Veterans. And so I join you here this evening to join our neighbors in asking your continuing support for the Sky Ridge Water District. I do not do so out of self-interest for a single entity, that being Clear Path, but rather in recognition and belief that this project serves the best interests of the veterans, service members, and military-connected families we serve. Their story is my story. A Navy pilot by training, I flew combat missions in Kosovo, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, the Horn of Africa during my 27+ year career on active duty, and had the honor to command all maritime patrol and reconnaissance forces in the Middle East during Operation Iraqi Freedom, New Dawn, and Inherent Resolve. In November 2021, I retired from active duty and returned home to Central New York to continue service at Clear Path for Veterans, a nonprofit all of us can and should be very proud of. Clear Path for Veterans has been serving military members, veterans and their families in New York State since 2011. Today, our programs span 33 counties across the state, with more expected soon. In November 2022, our service dog program earned accreditation from Assistance Dogs International, the global standard for excellence in the service dog industry. Further, experts from ADI recognize Clear Path as the only agency in the world that provides wraparound support to veterans in the manner we do. But it is not just what we do that deserves our collective pride, it is how we do it. Clear Path has earned highest ratings for fiscal transparency from two well-respected watchdog organizations, that being GuideStar and Charity Navigator. Independent auditors review our financials every year, and we post their findings on our website for all to see. The decision before you extends beyond a single water district. It is about a solemn obligation we all share together. In more than 27 years on active, if 27 years on active duty taught me anything, it is that rarely, if ever, will a decision be without risk. However, I can assure you, the benefits of this project far outweigh its risks. Besides providing our neighbors with access to clean water they deserve, this project will add value to the region's economy, increase local workforce, and allow us to serve as a model for other communities to support veterans and their families in a world-class fashion. I commit that to you because they, our veterans and their families, our neighbors, and all of you deserve nothing less. And in response to those who have questions about what plans are, I will make myself available to any members of the town board or any of our neighbors so that we can address any misinformation that may be out there. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments?
Hi, how are you? John, my name is Phil Berrigan. I live off Salt Springs Road, behind Horseshoe Lake. I'm on the water. My question is, it seems like there's a big question about bonding and where the money's coming from, right? So if this project doesn't go forward, the town is still, in my perception, you tell me whether I'm right or wrong, the town is still on the hook to do something for the Sky Ridge Water District. Whether it's this trunk line that precludes all the people on Salt Springs Road because they didn't they didn't think that fire safety was worth $500 a year. But that's their decision. Now we're bypassing them and going up and creating a bigger entity than just taking care of the Sky Ridge Water District. But there's still gonna be a bond at some point to do something for us, because the town is on the hook for that.
Yeah, it's
Is that
the
correct?
water district, it's our responsibility to essentially use your funds to steward the water district, so
Right.
yes. If this
Right,
project
it's still
ends up
our-
not going through, we would be looking to the water district residents to work together to figure out what the correct path forward is.
Right, and so something needs to be done, and the town is going to help in some way, or it might not be 13 million, it might be 6 million. But there's still a bonding issue that, you know, if people are worried about the town being on the hook, they're gonna be on the hook.
Yeah,
Because they have to do something with this water.
at some point in the
Because-
past, the town board at the time created the water district and created this responsibility to take care of it. So we are bound to continue that decision that was made a long time ago to make sure that this district has appropriate water.
Right, and we've been at this for 15, 20 years. Way back when, we could have brought a line up Gulf Road for 2 million. Now that they've built all those houses in Chittenango, that water line is gone. And so, you know, it's the procrastination, I'm gonna say, of past boards that haven't helped this situation. And now us as 30 people, residents out there are on the hook for lots more money. But hopefully we can get something done. And, you know, again, it's a road. There's construction on roads all the time. It's a line down the road, on the shoulder of the road, which there's property rights by the water district. Right?
Thank you very much. Any further comments? Okay, I will look for a motion to close the public hearing. No. We are holding it open, thank you.
Oh, yeah, sure, well, I'd like to make a motion to continue the public hearing, in the matter, wait, hold it. Yeah, in the matter of Sky Ridge Water District improvement pursuant to section 202B of town law to July 26th. And to publish notice of said continuation in the Syracuse newspapers at least 10 days before said continuation. A second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So that was the Sky Ridge Water District improvement public hearing. Now, I would look for a motion to waive the reading of the Sky Ridge Water District extension number 1.
Oh, I'm happy to do it. I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading of the public notice. For the Sky Ridge Water District extension number 1, in parentheses, clear path for veterans, adding one entity into the water district.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So I know we have a representative from ClearPath here to share. Or if we feel there's been sufficient comment from ClearPath, fine with that too. Okay, so
Just to be clear, this is the extension of the existing 29 units Sky Ridge Water District, which is commonly known as Bushy Lane, to the one property that's now owned by Fairground Veterans in the town of Manlius. So that would be the extension of the Sky Ridge Water District to that one property.
okay, seeing no public comments.
No, it's kind of confusing.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. So we are looking for the motion.
Sure. Well, are we good?
Yeah.
Well, does anyone have any other?
So this is just to add their map to the existing district.
Add that.
That's partial.
So there's two ways under town law, the 202B, which is the existing water district, which we took full public hearing on. Now there is under Article 12A of town law, a process to extend the water district to other properties. This is a public hearing to extend that water district to the Clear Path for Veterans property. Clear Path for Veterans has indicated their desire for the extension to take place. And that's where we are.
I have a quick question, and only because it's pertinent to this, but there was a name mentioned earlier, and I can't remember who it was, but it was someone we worked with as representatives of the Sky Ridge Water District, going up and down and getting signatures from all you Salt Springs people. And I had quite a lot of people who said they were very interested. And I wondered, the question here is, we're expanding to include, well, we're really creating two districts in a way, a little Sky Ridge district and an extended Sky Ridge district that includes Clear Path. And the question is, if that woman that I worked with, I met along the road who wants to join now, because there were people who were interested in time.
So I can
Not
address that.
just
So
the well owner,
remember, the comments
you know?
are to the board.
Yes,
What we understand is that there may be some residents on Salt Springs that are interested in
right,
forming a water district. The way that the extension number 1 district is being created,
Yeah.
will essentially be the model for those folks to join. That being said, the reason those are not being considered is we are looking, the entire reason we're having this conversation is because the WE application is due at the end of the month.
I know, yeah.
And so to take on another map and move
No,
forward.
no,
So,
I get it.
but that being said, there is nothing, once we get further into the future, if we do identify a number of residents that feel contiguous that are interested, we could sit down with those residents, just like we would with anybody else asking to form a new water district, and we have that conversation.
Very good, thank you.
You first?
Okay. As you're discussing about forming this new water district, what entities of Clear Path will be part of the water district? Will it be Clear Path Sky Ridge LLC, which is a separate corporation, or will it be Clear Path for Veterans, Inc., which is a 501c3?
It would be the LLC who owns the parcel, they would be the parcel that is inside of this water district.
Okay, I have another question. The LLC has 57 acres in Manlius and 120 acres in the town of Sullivan. The 57 acres in the town of Manlius is not taxed, but the LLC pays taxes in the town of Sullivan. Can you explain why?
So we do have, I work with the assessor to look at exactly that process. I can't speak to the exacts, but we have a renewal that the LLC has applied for an exemption based on use. We have not gotten the original document, we are looking for that, but we have a renewal that was approved by whoever makes those decisions, that they are qualified to be taxed.
Well, I think that document is a very important part of this process. And so I would, encourage you to find that document and Tim, I hope that you'll be reviewing it. Just to make sure that, things are on the up and up with it. Thank you.
Probably involved with this as long as anybody. I think it's an essential question of, is it in the town mission statement? Number one, I think the people of Horseshoe Lane deserve some kind of solution. But is it in the town's mission statement to take the lead of a project that's this expensive for properties that in some cases are in Madison County and in Sullivan County?
So
It's an essential question.
It is
about what
not
to
in the
do.
mission statement to do that. Town itself has.
It doesn't have that.
So
Well, whatever.
I can understand the question. We have a water district of 29 parcels that are asking us to do this. The reason the project is presented as it is because with Clear Path as a partner, along with the town of Sullivan, town of Manlius, and Aqua and the counties, we do feel that this is the best opportunity to get approval for larger funding applications. This puts everybody in the best possible situation. We will be having an MOU with all of the memorandum of understanding, that with all the other partners, that details responsibilities to funding, to oversight of EDU calculation in the future, which will then turn into an intermunicipal agreement, which is something that happens all the time. The two municipalities work together, come to an agreement, how to share services, how to work together towards some better goal. So, in my opinion, we have an opportunity to try, again, what is being considered by the board is whether or not we feel that with everything that's been laid out, we are comfortable approving what needs to be approved to apply for a WIA grant. If we don't get that WIA grant, this project doesn't happen. If we get that WIA grant, there's still more funding to find. And the town of Manlius as partners, Sullivan as a partner, Clearpath as a partner, that will all be working together to raise that money. So when it comes to this notion of always the town of Manlius covering costs for other groups, I don't think so. We happen to be the one that, due to where the existing water district is, it is our responsibility as the financier, I believe is the language that was used, of that water district. We are the ones who can take the bond. And what I will say is, should local governments, when in partnership with other local governments and other agencies, try to do big important things to get people water, I feel that that is the right thing to do. And again, we have had conversations about protections for the Skyward Water District residents, not having to pay too much. Clearpath is aware that if he can't get that EDU cost down, the project's not gonna happen. The project is better because of the partners we have. It makes it more likely that we'll see a completion of a good project.
All right, let's put it in perspective. These people have been delayed at Horseshoe Lane for 2 referendums now. You have a $2.8 million solution that would probably solve the problem. So by adding the extra mileage and the outside of the county player, Clearpath and Skyridge LLC, who's really the beneficiary, they're going to benefit from this. You add another over $10 million. Let's put in perspective, the assessed value in Horseshoe Lane is about $7.5 to $8 million. That's the entire value of every house in the development. You're talking about a water district for over 13 million. Tom Kinsella's offered a right of way to come up the hill. Half that is dirt, part of it is probably rock. Nobody seems to be interested in that. That would feed it fine. Aqua wants a loop. If they want a loop, Aqua should pay for a loop. They don't have to have a loop. There's no scientific reason why they have to have a loop. They have dead ends. It's not preferable, but we're going to add 2 or 3 miles to the mileage. Just doesn't make any sense. So I can say, thank you. I appreciate it. I know I'm talking a lot, but.
Anyone else with a comment?
So I just wanted to reiterate what you were kind of saying, that this is probably the best time to get infrastructure funding. So I think, if we don't get it now, I don't know if it's ever gonna happen. But anyway, I just wanted a point of clarification when we just discussed the Clearpath joining the Skyridge Water District, the extension. So that's not gonna happen unless this project goes through, right? Because we couldn't have them joining now because we can barely handle ourselves right now. So that's not happening. It just sounded like there was a vote or something on it, and it's.
I mean, right now, if we voted on it.
They would be in the water district, but they would be.
Whatever solution.
Wouldn't opt to connect.
Well, that's what I'm worried
because there
about.
wouldn't be any
We
water.
can't have them.
There's no water on it.
They wouldn't make an expenditure to connect to the Skyridge system,
Yeah,
just there with water available.
right. Well, we don't have the water to give them.
They make 10 on or that, yeah. During that one.
That's a good question. We can do a little bit more reading on that.
Then maybe put a rider on that they're not a member until the system goes through.
No, it's a good point.
Any other comments?
Yes, again, Steve Benson, I would like to say that
This is not a veterans issue. This is a town issue. One aspect of it you should consider is what inflation planning factor will we use?
It's
Because
in the map plan report.
what is it? You know?
I don't know off the top of my head. It's in the map.
Because
No.
Because the Fayetteville Manlius used 2% as a planning factor. 3 years ago, and now the school system is having to do massive changes. So we watch that inflation factor
Absolutely.
carefully.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Have one on mine.
Okay, yeah, so why aren't we focusing on Skyridge Water District that is in the town of Manlius fixing their issue? With 29 respondents from the district, 100% of approval to move forward with this, I think that is focusing on Skyridge Water District. And why are we taking on this issue? To get clean drinking water to Skyridge Water District. Any further comments?
The engineering firm.
Mike there, what's that reading there?
Is the engineering firm going through to check the shale and the rocks that are in this area?
So I think the spirit of the question, this is a very, very preliminary map plan report at how they are. If the project is moving forward, this would be bid out, it would be a competitive process to make sure that we've got engineers and construction to happen. All of those things will be taken into consideration later on. Again, this is a very preliminary report that is what is required as part of the application to see if the funding is available for it.
All right, the only reason that I asked this is. I had my deck reinforced and took 2 guys just to. Put in 4x4s. 2 days with a big ramrod. To get all that shale off. I was told to connect to that water district would cost me $25,000 to $30,000 because I'm setback. And there's so much shale and rock. And I'm just wondering, along that road. Do they understand what they could be facing?
I don't, we have,
The engineer made an estimate of the cost. I can take into consideration the fact that there is shale under that road, so.
The milk.
I believe they've done boring. But
Yeah, but-
they have some idea. I mean, they've done it anything, but I believe they've done borings along Saltspring. So they have, that's what things are based on at this point.
Yeah, we are having our engineer review as well, and by the, like, soon, so that's the. Yeah, by the next meeting.
any other public comments? Okay. Any other comments? Prepared?
Motion to continue the public hearing in the matter of Skyridge Water District Extension number 1 to July 26th, and to publish notice of said continuation in the Syracuse newspapers at least 10 days before said continuation.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up on the agenda is the public hearing for the proposed law to amend chapter 127 of the town of Manlius Code subdivision to further clarify that each new individual subdivided lot within a water district shall directly tie into public water available to such lots. So this is one that we've kind of gone back and forth on a little bit. We have some new language that endeavors to specify exactly what the intent of this law is. And so just that language includes, rather than where public water is available to a properly subdivided lot, each existing lot, it reads a properly subdivided lot is filed with Underwood County Clerk's Office after September 1st, 2023. So it doesn't exist, this doesn't apply to any previous subdivision, and each new lot created that is within an existing water district would be required to tie up to the water system. So, I would look for any questions, comments, discussion from the board? Okay, I would for a motion to waive the reading of the public notice.
I'll make a motion to waive a reading of the public notice for local law, 2023 to amend chapter 1.
One second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
We'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
I second it. Oh, sorry, William did.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So if you're joining us via Zoom, please use the raise hand function. Is there anyone here that would like to make a comment on this?
My black jacket. Joe Massinio again. First of all, I'd like to thank the town board. I had addressed you some time ago to clarify the language. And Attorney Fortesky for working so hard on it and then spending time with me on Sunday to explain it in greater depth. So I obviously support the language change and I appreciate
Oh, thank you very
the
much.
change.
Yes. I will say too, like, this is one that, you know, in a conversation about a current development, Aqua was like, hey, could we do something like this? We had a little back and forth. And luckily, through the process of democracy and public hearings, we are looking at a much better, more detailed law that I think is really a product of an engagement. So thank you very much for all the feedback on this. Any other public comments?
So reasonable. So within the language of the resolution, and actually echo what Joe just said, I think you guys have done a great job at revising this, and Attorney Fortesky, good job. Within the language of the resolution, in one paragraph on page 2, a reference is made to local law 2023-7. But on the title page and in later text, it references local law 2023-9.
This
Yes,
law
sir.
is 2023-9. The law that we passed previously was
Was-
7. We actually passed one in the middle, but it was Mississippi Lane, stop sign.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any further comments? Okay.
You missed that. Go ahead. It was not.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to second that.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Further discussion? We have a resolution to adopt local law.
So I'll make a motion to adopt local law 23-9 to amend chapter 2027 on Manlius code subdivisions to further clarify that each new individual subdivided lot within a water district shall be directly tied into public water available to such lots as outlined in the resolution.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
You got Sarah.
What's that?
You got Sarah's,
I didn't think so.
I think up there, we have.
I know, you can hear you, Sarah.
I voted.
Oh.
So now that this is closed, I didn't want to bring this up in the middle of the other public hearing and finding this. We did receive 2 comments from.
Oh, okay, I can.
Okay.
So the comment is, why the water district language, why doesn't it say when public water is available? Because being within the water district is how that public water is available, to get access to it, and we wanted to make sure that this was as specific as possible, with that language. And to the point, I think that was a large, motivator behind, some of the scrutiny for this, is can we on Salt Springs get railroaded into this? The intent of this law is to not do that. There is no water district on Salt Springs. I don't believe there will be one anytime soon, which means this law will not apply to any parcel in Salt Springs. For the foreseeable future. Okay. Next up, we have 2 resolutions for the consolidated funding application. So again, the CFA is includes the WIA grant, so you're seeing, you know, things moving quickly before the deadline, trying to get things taken care of. I did receive a request to kind of talk about that zoning one. So again, the comprehensive plan, if and when it is adopted, has some recommendations for how the folks that built that plan and had input to that plan hope to see the town develop in the future. And so our goal is to adjust the zoning by doing a study and looking at a revision, working with professionals to ensure that our zoning is aligned with the comprehensive plan. Okay, so we have existing zoning map that's right up there that everybody can take a look at. There is a rich history of how that zoning map came to be in its current state. That being said, much of that zoning is a pretty old kind of philosophy that behind how things are developed. And so I know we've had conversations and presentations regarding form-based zoning. This is zoning that is more concerned with the look and community feel of development rather than necessarily its core use. This is something that we're seeing when people are saying we want walk communities, we want mixed use. We are trying to position ourselves to have zoning that will allow us to achieve the goals outlined in the comprehensive plan. So that's where the motivation is behind that, and I think that was a pretty consistent conversation had throughout the comprehensive planning process. The goal was, let's get a plan, let's get a consensus, let's find out what people want, and then use that as motivation to then change our laws so that our town can develop in the way that the comprehensive plan lays it out.
And may I add to that, that the process of doing this is envisioned to take 2 years and to include a resident and local business input. There's actually a requirement of a zoning advisory board being formed and meeting regularly throughout this process to be sure that community needs, as was referenced earlier in the public statement, are being adequately represented in something that might be so that future use plan document is not prescriptive of this is exactly how it will be in the future. It may in the end have bubbles in different places based on what's happening at the time when this is finally done. So if people are ready, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing the submission of a consolidated funding application to apply for a grant to fund a zoning revision project for the sum of up to $100,000 with a 10% town match, as outlined in the resolution prepared by the attorney for the town.
Like to second that?
Any discussion, any questions?
I mean, this is the same thing if we don't get current time to law, we can find a different way to do it. So want to do it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And next up, Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit about this one?
So the second one is a plan to do a little study. This particular funding stream is limited to a study time and it's limited to $50,000. So it's a small study. So the location that we selected is Limestone Creek at the place where Three Falls Woods comes in, where the 173 bridge is, where the wet septic system is on the edge of the village of Manlius. And that is an area which has had a lot of erosion recently and a lot of damage to property. And so we thought that would be a good place to focus this effort at this time.
And I will say too, I think this is very much, why are we having this conversation right now? Because the town board has made changes to put us in a better position to be applicable for these grants. That be in a position where we can apply for this money to then bring that money back and do good things for the community. So it's a result of quite a bit of hard work by everybody.
So I'd like to make a motion to adapt the resolution authorizing the submission of a consolidated funding application to apply for a grant to fund a non-agricultural, non-point source planning study for Limestone Creek at the unnamed tributary from Three Falls Woods for a sum of up to $50,000 with a 10% town match as outlined in the resolution prepared for the attorney for the town.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Can I just make a comment? The consolidated funding application is the portal that you use to apply for state program money. And it's great that there's this one place where you can go and sort of put in the details of what you're looking to do and find matches, but it's still quite an intense process. And so I know that, I think the Village of Fayetteville has worked with their engineering team and basically worked with folks and built into their engineering budget support for the grant writing process. I would assume that's how it's done, and it always pays in dividends because you get the money and there you go. We haven't had this as a process or a thing we did regularly in the town, not formally. And so we're lucky to have had Sarah's experience. I applied for a grant, Elaine's applied for grants. Really, we were involved in digging out, and Alyssa's capable and willing to do that. And so, I mean, it's taken elbow grease, but it's not sustainable for a community of our size to do it, have scattered shots. So I'm really grateful that we have, Sarah had the foresight along with everyone to approve money within our engineering budget to do this, to pay money to get money.
Okay, next up, we have the Just FOIA software agreement. So as we've talked about in a few meetings in the past, Allison, whoever our town clerk, did a little research into and got proposals for a number of FOIA softwares that would basically reduce the burden on town hall staff and increase transparency. Just FOIA is the one that's been selected. We have an agreement in front of us. This is one that is gonna really just be great for everybody. When a FOIL request is brought in, we'll take it in, we'll serve the FOIL request. But what this software is gonna allow us to do is have those FOILs responses exist on the website for anyone to consume. So if someone FOILs an agreement and then a year later someone FOILs that same agreement, it will pre-serve them. So it doesn't even have to get through approval of the whole process, the whole FOIL process, which is really exciting. Very exciting.
Many great so many foils right now.
Yes.
It'll be a good thing. It'll also protect us from a liability perspective in the sense that when we do get the foils for emails and we do redactions, we can list for each redaction what our reasoning was, cite the case law behind it, or the section of the law we use, so that if we were ever to experience what, and I hope I use the word right, and in camera review with him, we would be able to more easily answer that and be responsive.
Any questions?
I have several requests, so this is in the contract that I add a request law as additional insured to the general liability insurance. Will you please request that they add as additional insured
Oh,
to the general liability insurance?
sure.
So I'd like to make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the agreement for the purchase and implementation of FOIL management software at an annual rate of $8,351.50 as outlined in the agreement presented to authorize the use of ARPA funds for that purchase.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, we're using ARPA funds here because we've set aside money to improve technology, which is definitely a good thing to do for. Like all this will be available online.
And the understanding too is these are funds to absorb the budget expense to this year and to reduce the cost and then to back in the yearly cost that was sorry. Okay, next up, we have a special patrol officer agreement with East Syracuse Manoa School District for the 2023-2024 school year. I know I did receive a question about, I want to say it's section 5.4. I did follow up with the chief. This is the portion that said when a SPO calls in sick, the town would provide a substitute. And in practice, that has not been what has happened. So if someone makes a motion, I would just ask that understanding the motion takes into consideration that we'll strike that before we send it back over to ESM, just understanding. So again, this is, we have SPO contracts that follow the same blueprint time after time with each SPO. Every time we look at it, we adopt the entire contract. So we do have existing SPO contracts that when they're renewed, we would look to further strike that language. But any other questions or
So I have a couple questions. I know we've been talking about looking at this program for about 10 years school now. And it definitely has increased substantially since then. So I want to look back through our financials to make sure that we are getting our true costs back from the schools being reimbursed appropriately. So I would like to table this tonight. One, because we have the SEO contract, but then we have the SRO office comments as well. To do those together, to make a little more sense to see the full program. And then two, just, oops, I lost my train of thought. That's why I usually write stuff down. But two, just to make sure we do our financial analysis on this program first.
I will say, we've had some internal meetings where we've looked at this,
Yeah.
and the general consensus was that we will be reaching out to the schools. To just have a conversation about how these agreements are formulated, how they're renewed year to year, and then also advocating for exactly that, making sure that the town is made whole when we are providing these services as requested by the schools.
Yeah.
And I think the general consensus was to get ESM, the officer that we previously authorized to hire. We asked the chief to start that process, applicants found. So while this would be the hiring, the goal would be that this gives them what they've requested for their next school year, while that gives us time to have a conversation about the overall agreement.
I disagree with that, because they already had an SEO agreement with us from last year. And that, I believe they go from September to June. So again, this contract would not, it doesn't start until September 1st, so we have time.
Well, my general understanding is that we're not going to be able to reach an agreement with schools prior to that September date. And I would like to allow them to move forward with this while understand, I don't want to hold them up.
Hire. They need to be able to hire for the start of the new year.
But this doesn't start until the September 1st.
Like someone's term, so they, but someone, so she knows that go.
Special patrol agreement.
We've already hired the person, they are in training right now, and this is what ESM needs for them to start.
So it says it's made of the first day of September 2023. So that's why I don't understand.
So they're in training right now, but they will start working until September 1st.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
They
it won't be
take an
training.
agreement with the school district. Let me think of that.
Okay, so,
They're an employee of the town.
okay, so we're in a situation where I don't mean to cut that here, but you're on the.
I asked to table this, and I'd like to take these contracts and do them together.
Okay,
So she's supposed to be the SBO and the SRO's ones at the same time.
I don't think we need to, but I understand why, I don't see the benefit of doing it because we still will not have a number of things that you want in place, that all of us want in place in order to look at the holistic program. And I think what we're seeking to do is, for example, if we know we're hitting out an officer with everything they need and it costs, you know, us 13 grand or whatever, but it actually is written into the contract that we're only getting about 10 grand, which I think could be the case, something like that. We're gonna have a lot of things we need to discuss with the school, so holding back on principle, simply in principle, because the person's already in training, this particular thing doesn't serve us, and instead, I think just eats at the goodwill for no reason. I think that the contracts and the whole program, it's just a ripeness of 10 years. We absolutely need to look at them. We don't need to be doing these individual contracts anymore, if you ask me. We were talking about I would like to be able to have a grant contract with each school district. A single contract with each school district, you know.
So I know that was mentioned, but like right now, as far as I understand, we have an SPO contract with the schools, and then they're in charge of choosing, like, hiring. We usually say how many, but we don't actually specifically use one per person in contract, like that's between schools and the police department. For the SIRO, those are the ones that we have to agree to on everyone, because they're different ballots.
Right. We're going into a period of time where we have a staffing review that the chief, that the chief is gonna be able to talk about. We have the police negotiations coming up. and we have to have these conversations with the school districts. So I would venture a guess that we're gonna come up with a solution we're gonna have to do something that incorporates all these issues, and we're not gonna find a perfect way to phrase and ask this particular SBA. If we say, if somebody might say, I think that section 5.4, not putting in something that's erroneous, that doesn't happen is important, but I don't think like we're looking at pay and trying to nitpick about an hourly pay for one person versus another makes any sense right now. Because I think we need a role in this, to just serve. To serve them better, but
I think, I would like to say that I think we need communication. So what I would like to see is the plan for what is being done at least. Who is collecting the numbers? Who is meeting with the school district? How is this getting resolved? Because we had this conversation a year ago and it doesn't appear that anything has happened since.
yeah, a lot has happened since though, Sarah, in terms of leadership, with the police department.
And just, we had an initial conversation, with, folks over at myself and town manager, had a conversation with some, police department staff and the chief. To begin that conversation as kind of a fact finding, where we got a little bit of feedback on how things can be adjusted. Initially, we talked about operationally, is there anything in this agreement that needs to or should be adjusted? And so as we continue that process, I'd be happy to report out to the board about how that's going, and the intent is to reach out to the schools after this meeting and set something up.
And the drive behind it is for us to make sure that we understand how much we're really paying for everything and when, and making sure we're properly budgeting, and also that the schools understand what we're, so that we have that, we have that good conversation with them.
Well, the intent of the agreement is to provide these services at the cost to the town. And so we just want to make sure, not only for the next go around, is that cost accurate, but also that there is a way for that cost to change over time as the cost of administrative program changes. So I would be, if you like, I can make sure we give an update anytime we have anything further with this. But again, my goal is, that's gonna be a process. I wanna make sure too, we're aligned with the school district's budgeting cycle, so that it works for them, so we're not, having them do things out of their normal calendar. So there's a lot of goals here to clarify the relationship.
Yeah.
And just make sure that both municipalities involved are getting a fair deal.
What will happen next meeting?
So we can go through this and make sure that there's no other,
What information, what other data will we have internally?
but am I wrong that this doesn't start until September 1st? We have time, that's my thing, we have time. Those can be things in time. Go through it, so we wanted to split screen. Or these have these conversations.
Well, what I would say is that it's not likely that by September 1st, 2023, when this contract will take effect, that we will have been able to have a full understanding of the changes that are needed to the program and engage with the schools to build that language and adopt something. The goal is to keep moving along, supporting the school districts as we have been, while at the same time looking to the next round of contracts to say, hey, this is what we need, this is what you guys need, let's work on some language that solves this problem, as opposed to just kind of patching holes.
So we have changes that you have to look into still before the next meeting. I understand, I can understand that, but it's not gonna be the wholesale change that we wanted, that we are.
That's okay, that's fine, but just like the 5.4, like that's really good to know. We've already noticed something that's not.
Well, in this gives me time, I'll reach out to this and let them know about that change, and we'll have a conversation.
I was just gonna say, if we are do this as a regular 5.4, however, having those schools are gonna be okay with it.
We don't.
have to come back with it.
We don't, it would be pending that.
Right. So I can probably approve it and then have to, we have to approve it everyone.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Next up, renewal minutes.
So we have to.
No.
So nobody made a motion to approve it, if you made a motion to approve it, then, subsequent vote, so we can do that, so.
So the intent will be to have this contract on the next agenda for further discussion and follow up after communications.
Right, just so that striking of section 5.4 should be reflected in that. Okay.
It's not happening as it is, and we don't want to sign for remember things that are actually happening.
Yeah, and so, Sarah, there's no doubt that this is a priority, but there are so many of these pieces that are coming together with this.
Approval of the minutes, 2022.
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes for June 20.
Second, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, carries. That's right.
I'd like to make a motion to approve abstract number 13, amount of $499,344.28. The winners this time are paving and recreation.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Any?
I have a question about, from Maria, recreation. I was just wondering about if recreation is going to be a target for the revenue goal. Well, no, in the report that we got from Maria, that we were looking at our revenue targets to see how far we are from, to the half of the year that we're in. And I just, it's just a general question that we've had towards budget time, but I don't know when the payments for things come in for the summer and things like that, because I think, yeah, we're in pretty good shape, but for the revenue goals, wondering. Sorry,
Yeah, sorry, I got confused.
so revenue goals for
Revenue and for the revenue.
I think so, like our registrations and things, that was just. That's why I'm saying, like, I don't see we're funded yet, so I just don't remember on that.
So because registrations have been up higher than was expected, and because for the boat float, that was something unexpected that they took on, and all the registrations came through like that, and then for the usage fee.
That's
So there's
great.
additional income for that. That came through for that on that side of things, and there's a big increase in the amount of ads that are increased in the payroll.
Thank you for that, yeah.
There's so much up, by the way, that's on July 2021, 22nd, still abroad. Take your tickets.
Okay, seeing no other business, I would for the motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Good night, everybody.